Welcome to Yumi and All Things She. Our podcast is about all aspects of being a woman, from motherhood to careers, romantic relationships to family relationships and dynamics, and everything in between. It's a chance to learn, explore, and feel what's genuine and imagined as a woman in this world, along with multi-generational conversations that will stimulate your soul. So sit back, laugh, smile, and even cry a little along with us as we begin our journey together. Yumi and All Things She. Welcome to this episode of Yumi and All Things She. My name is Deb. I am absolutely elated to bring you today's episode. We have got so much to talk about, but more important than that, I have some extremely special ladies that will be our guests today. So hang tight, you're in for an amazing episode. So just sit back, relax, and put a smile on your face. Here we go. I have invited my daughters to join me. We talked about initially that this is going to be a multi-generational conversation. And today we're going to talk about the joys of motherhood, and what better time to have multi-generational conversations with beautiful women. So I've invited my youngest daughter, Nicole, and my oldest daughter, Britt, to join me today to talk about the joys of motherhood. Let's get it going because I am so super stoked to talk about this topic. So when we mention the joys of motherhood, Nicole, what would you say are one of the most amazing moments that when someone says, what joy do your children bring you and what's motherhood brought to you? What thought comes to your mind?
I would have to say the fact that you see them grow from like nothing into something. So I have a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old, and the 3-year-old's almost 4. So he's now in school to where he's learning a lot. And so just seeing him be like kind of just a little squishmallow to a big thriving almost 4-year-old to where he's got his own thoughts, I think that's probably the most exciting part of it.
Okay, fabulous. Britt, what about you? You've got different age groups for children. So, share a little bit about the joys of motherhood and things that come to mind when you mention joy of children and motherhood.
We certainly do. I have a preteen and a teenager. I have a 14-year-old or almost 14-year-old daughter, and my son will be 13.
Mom brain at its finest.
Mom brain, yes. So a son that is 11, I'm going to be 12 this year, and a 13-year-old daughter who's going to be 14. Yeah, mom brain, right? And but I agree with Nicole. It's really being able to see them flourish from nothing into something. And because there are, such big age gap between both of our children, or all of our children, is that seeing their creativity start in one way and blossom into something entirely different as they continue to grow and get older year by year.
Absolutely. And me, of course, having the oldest of the children, those moments when you're in the grind of parenting and being a mother and all the things that we go through. If you work outside the home, that takes a whole new look and twist. If you don't, you've got that in day-to-day in and out of being with your child. So from that infancy, I certainly can understand the joy that you all have. But I think as a mother of grown adult women that have now had children,
very different,
very, very different. And I enjoy watching you at this point in your life, just love your children and watching them grow and inspiring them to be so much more than what maybe you even saw as a possibility as a child. So for me, that joy is exponential because I'm watching it in multiple different levels, not only with you that are my children, but my grandchildren, which are an offspring of you. So I think that's fabulous. What do you think some of the challenges may have been with you in this journey of motherhood, especially with the children? Is it the grind of being a working mom? What other things do you think that, just really may cause kind of a hurdle that you need to overcome?
I think one of the big things is taking into account what society says these days. A lot of times, like with breastfeeding, there's a lot of scientific stuff. Basically, from the time that you were a parent, a lot has changed. So society tells you to not let a child get their ears pierced until they can decide for it themselves. If you have a daughter, or don't circumcise your son. So it's all these other outside factors that you have to take into account and balance with your own thoughts and feelings. Because if you do the wrong thing in society's eyes, then a lot of times you can be attacked for it. So it's just knowing a balance of your self morals and beliefs and stuff like that, and be able to balance not that the outside matters, but that is a society we live in, is to balance that too, I guess.
And I think, Britt, for you, that's probably very different than when your children were young too. It's not even just the, the 30 plus years in between ours, as far as my mothering and your mothering, but also that midstream had kind of some of it too. And social media wasn't really existing
Right.
when her children were young. So anything like that you experienced as a mother that, just kind of a difficulty, but, you were able to get over it and then bring joy to your life.
Absolutely. When I first had both of my two children when they were really young, I was a stay-at-home mom. And I definitely have to agree with Nicole, is that society, right? But what even more impacts me today, now that my children are older and in their teen years, is that looks differently today than it did when I was raising my children at a very young age. And now I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I'm a full-time working single parent, working on my career. So things look differently for that today. And the challenge for me, I would say my biggest challenge is that we have a split family dynamic, right? So, the children are with me part of the time, they're with their dad part of the time. So really trying to find that balance of that split family dynamic, to where it is healthy and a stable environment for the children, myself, and everyone involved. And, I think today, I said this back years ago, but it really takes a village, and I really wouldn't be able to do that with my support network, especially as a single mother.
Absolutely. So you bring up some great points, and I love that. And, if you guys ever just want to pop in, we don't have to do this kind of interview style. So feel free. But I totally agree that the societal environment that Nicole was expressing, and I talked about that, I think, in the last episode, is that this whole Facebook concept, the social medias that were painting this picture of perfect lifehood, but behind the door of the house, things could be very chaotic. And then you're struggling. And, just to bring up the breastfeeding, I didn't breastfeed. I was, with Brittany, I was down and out with walking pneumonia. So I was extremely sick and didn't have that opportunity. And then because of all of our experiences at that point, the ease of passing her to other family members and, her dad and everything to feed, that made life easier. But then there weren't any of the stereotypes at that point. But nowadays, if I were to be faced with that same decision, I think that, people would be putting daggers at me and hating me and all sorts of stuff if I didn't do that. But then if you don't do it right, more daggers come your way. So, we have to be, I think, confident as women in what we believe is our own value, and either be willing to walk through the difficulties of it, or, find answers if we're so committed to it. And, I commend you for being that. And Britt as well, you're a strong woman to get out there and just make things happen. So awesome. You guys just came from really, really different perspectives.
Well, before we go on, I have like a thought about that is, the society thing, I think, is so impactful. At least it has been for me, with my son being 4. So I've dealt with it the entirety of being a mother, is the fact that when you need help or you want to ask for help or something like that, it all comes with those societal demands. And so then you have to take into account, like, for example, if I want to get my daughter's ear pierced, I know I mentioned that before. If I put that on a Facebook forum for moms, what kind of backlash could I get if I'm just asking a question? And the same thing goes for like the topic of baby-led weaning. That wasn't a thing, when you were raising us, but it's a huge topic now. But if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, like, these moms will rip you to shreds on these Facebook groups.
Wow.
And it is just the silliest thing, because you would think as a mom, as a woman, we'd have each other's back. But I don't know if it's the societal necessarily the right word for it, or if it's the virtual world of it. But that is, I think, the biggest compounding factor of why it's so hard these days, because you want to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or my baby's doing this, but then like you're so scared of the backlash or the comparisons of what they're going to say about their baby and how that can make you feel and stuff like that. So I think it's just like a bigger, broader spectrum than just, what does society expect of me? That makes sense.
This balancing act. Absolutely. I get it. And, we had that balancing act, I think, in different ways as I was raising you as children. So as a mother, one moment, one gleam in your eye that you go, oh my gosh, that brings me so much joy, whether it's a thought from the past or something that the child does today. What comes to mind when we talk about that? Oh, Oh, that just melts my heart.
Well, mine are a little bit older, so I need to think on that one a little bit.
Well, for me, Alexander, like I said, he's getting to the point where he can express his thoughts and feelings a little bit better. So when he can look at me and say, "Oh, you're the best mom ever," because I give him a s'mores at night, it's refreshing to know that like this is so little for him, but it's such a big return to me in the way that he perceives it. It helps me to understand the smaller things in life.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as like, hey, can we go jump on the trampoline? And like, I really don't feel like it, but sure. And then like you see him bouncing around, jumping and dancing, and like that's what's bringing him joy. So to kind of rechannel that childhood of just finding the happiness in small things is kind of what inspires me. And I love watching him play by himself with his little cars and use his imagination. And he's a fun age.
Yeah, that's right. Coming out of those threes is absolutely a fun age. So Britt, anything that you'd like to add to that?
It certainly is, and I can definitely agree with Nicole because I spend a lot of time with her children as well. But for my children, because they are in those, preteen and teen years, it's like the stage of independence, right? So they're don't need mom anymore. I don't need your help, But I think the joy as, looking at as they're older is really seeing the joy when they find joy, right? So
Yeah.
watching them find what they're good at and their passions and their hobbies, and knowing my daughter loves to dance, right? So she loves to dance, and it brings me so much joy because Nicole and I grew up dancing, and for her to go to the same school we went to and to walk the same halls, like that brings me true joy that she gets to, even though I'm not there with her on a daily basis, is that I kind of feel like gets to walk in my footsteps a little bit. And then for John, it's him finding who John is and really discovering himself, and that changes for him because he has his own challenges that he deals with on a daily basis.
Sure.
So really for me lately it's the joy of him really knowing what he's capable of and really tapping into his own true self. That's where I find
Fabulous.
my joy.
Man, those are great. You guys have done a great job of giving some good examples. As a mother and a grandmother, I think for me, what you're expressing to me and what I have learned as I get older, because I think I've shared that I'm a go, go, go person until I stop. And then, so what brings me real joy is becoming present in that moment. So it's present in your lives when you want and need me. And I think Britt is figuring that out, that from this point on in life, boy, they'll come to you when they want you and not when they don't. So you got to kind of pick those decisions. But what is inspiring about that and what can bring joy to us as mothers is knowing that we have brought you up in what we believe is the best possible way, and watching you kind of spread your wings and go, and then watching the innocence of those younger children start to just really blossom and discover their own aha moments in life and what brings them joy. And and I know all of them love to put smiles on your faces and loves to put smiles on our faces. So if we just are present with them, the joy can be endless. We just sometimes, I know in that mothering, and you'll understand it when you kind of get to the other side of it, but when you're in the grind of raising them and trying to teach them the lessons, it's very different than when you're on the grandmother side and you just get to watch them be who they are and love it. I do want to talk about also, is there anything that you've learned from your children about joy and about happiness from being a mother? Is there something that's, wow, I didn't realize that. And you kind of go through this evolution in life. And I know you're both now, not that I'll give your age away, but you're beyond the 20 point. And so that's one cycle of life. And now you're moving into the next phase of adulthood and familyhood and womanhood. And anything that you've learned from your children that you kind of takeaways that, you just want to make sure you pass on to them about joy.
About joy specifically.
Joy specifically. Yeah. Joy is a motherhood.
You got anything?
That they pass down, I think for me is like remembering the innocence of a child, right? So like seeing them discover and to grow and to tap into new ideas and new things reminds me that it's okay for me to do that too, and to continue to grow myself and to, push past boundaries and break through fears. And I think kids are so resilient these days. And so that's, it brings me joy to watch them grow in all of those dynamics, because it reminds me that it's okay. Even though I might struggle in motherhood a lot of times, and not a lot of times too, is that it reminds me, it kind of almost gives me that permission that it's okay to have some bad days, but it's also a gift to be a mom.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Well said. My gosh. Yeah. Nicole, anything to tag on that?
I think just pretty much what I said earlier, as far as finding the joy in the small things. For me, it is being present in those moments, because now I do have, she's almost not a newborn anymore, but we just went through that newborn phase, and that was a big transition within a family dynamic. And so we're about the same age gap apart as my kids are. And so when you transition from an only child type of dynamic to a hold on, I got to feed the baby while you sit on the floor next to me type of dynamic.
Right.
You go through the struggles of like feeling guilty and that you're neglecting them. And, and so my husband had to remind me like, oh, he's never going to remember this. But then that triggered something in me to be like, okay, well, what is he going to remember? Because that's what we need to start sculpting for him. And so the few minutes that I can jump on the trampoline with him while the baby's sleeping, or, if we have a dance party downstairs while she's sleeping, or anything like that, I can make those special memories with him, are, because he has such a good memory, are going to be the things that he remembers. And so it's starting to kind of build those things that he will be able to look back on for the rest of his life.
Absolutely. Boy, those you guys got a lot of wisdom in your years there. So absolutely. It is about, what will they remember? And for me, even being the grandmother now, I think about that. What do you guys remember? What was meaningful in your life? And most oftentimes it's not what we bought you.
Right.
It's not the material items. It was the fact that we invested in you to do dance because you were passionate about that. Or, we showed up at recitals, and even though I had to nudge your dad and say, wake up, they're on stage. The point was that the joy was filled because we were all present and we were there together to support one another as well. So we talked a little bit about some of the challenges. If you were to give a brand new mother advice about joy in having a family, starting their family, what advice would you provide for them?
I would say, and I say it to everybody that I know is pregnant, especially in the postpartum phase of it, is just give yourself grace. I think that's the biggest thing is, again, we have mom guilt. And I think that's just a natural, I don't know if it's hormones or whatever, or if it even lasts till your age, or I don't know where it is embedded into us, but there is this just innate mom guilt that comes with things, like, oh, I let them cry too long, I feel so bad. Or, there's just like silly things that I've noticed that I'm like, oh man, it hurts your heart, but it's like, you have to look at yourself. Okay, well, if I didn't put that baby down, I would have had a much harder time if I didn't give myself a break. So I think just being able to know that you're doing your best if you're doing your best, and then just cutting yourself some slack after that, because in anything in life, the best is all we can do. And so if you're harder on yourself, yeah, you can learn from it, but ultimately, especially in the first few weeks, few months of being a first parent or a second parent, that grace is a huge thing to help kind of get you through, I would say, at least the first year of postpartum.
Fabulous. Okay. I like that tip. That's a good one. Britt, any tips?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to tag off the grace line because as I've mentioned, previously, is that my children are much older and we've had a lot of shift in dynamic, right? So within our family household is that, so not only grace, like in the first, couple of months or the first year, but I think a saying that comes to mind, it's okay to be perfectly imperfect, right? So we're perfectly imperfect and we're going to have our good days. We're going to have our bad days. But it makes us stronger if we reach out and ask for help. So if there was one thing that, I could give any wisdom or advice on, is that it's okay to invite your tribe to help you, like I mentioned earlier, like it takes a village. And I say that now, but I wasn't doing it back when my children were younger. So that's what we're kind of laughing at. But it took me many, many years to understand that, I was a stubborn in my teens, tweens, 20s, whatever, you want to say. And it took me a long time to kind of grow out of that. So, asking for help is okay. Being patient with yourself is okay. And like just hitting the pause button and say, I just need a minute is okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that somebody said to me, and I was 18, I think, when they said this, and I've said it to you as you've grown through some stuff. Actually, that was a completely different topic.
But it might be
Got my wires
meaningful,
mixed on the memory
right,
there.
mom brain.
But no, one of the things that I do think is important, and I have heard somewhere, whatever, is dang, the wires got crossed again, is that as our parents are growing up, or as we are growing up, our parents are also growing up.
True.
So I try to hold that true to myself as far as, I'm watching my son grow up, my kids, whatever, but like I'm still growing up. And so I've never been the age I am now. I've never gone through the experiences I'm going through now.
Sure.
And same thing for you. And so it's changed my perspective of how I've looked at you and dad is,
Good.
well, you're still where you are, like you're growing up till the day that you pass. And so this is the one life you have. I can't expect you to be perfect and to know everything because you've never been where you are now.
Right.
And so the whole time we were growing and learning and developing through life, like, so were you,
Right.
you know what I mean? And so now I can look at it in a multi-dimensional perspective, because if I wanted to go back to work and be a working mom instead of, a part-time, mostly stay-at-home mom, I would have a perspective of really, how did you do it? And what was your experiences versus mine, because we are in two very different realms. So it's just helped me have a different perspective on everything.
Yeah, I love that. So to wrap it up, I agree. Grace for ourselves, grace for the family, grace to understand that, we're going through whatever we're going through. And, Britt had a great recommendation. Take a pause. Oh, we just need a timeout right now, and whether you're a single mom and the kids just need to pause for a moment and cry it out while you kind of get your thoughts together, or two. And then also the perspective that Nicole mentioned is, having grace with our parents, because I think where we get in trouble so many times, just as people, and I'm not going to just make it women, is that we have expectations, and we have expectations of others. And then we have those expectations of ourselves, and we miss out on so much joy with our children and being a mother and all of that because of all of those expectations. If we just don't have an expectation and just enjoy the experience and give grace to not only ourselves and our family, but everyone around us, the world would be, everyone would go, this utopia that we're looking for would exist. We wouldn't even have to do much to get there, because we would just allow each other to be who they are and grow in their own grace and be there to love them and encourage them. So those are the 3 tips: grow in grace, be patient, hit the pause button if you need to, and also just let each other grow in grace and be patient and no expectations. So I am so grateful that you two joined me this time. It was a surprise. It was something that kind of woke me up one morning, and I said, you know what? I want to talk about the joys of motherhood, and who better to do it in this multi-generational conversation than my 2 favorite ladies. So thank you guys both for being here. Any last words that you'd like to end the show with?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, you should, my little social media expert. Please, if you will, press the like button, do the subscribe so that you do not miss an episode. And we will see you on the very next show.
Bye.
Bye.